Hey, you guys know the deal. Hey, what's up, YouTube? How you guys doing? Good to see you guys. I know it's Saturday. I know it's UFC day, and I usually don't do podcasts on this day. Forgive the kitchen in the background. I am in the process of moving. We are packing up the house, so we have the banners are down. We don't have the lab anymore. We're just getting ready. We don't want to put anything on the walls, if you will. So I'm kind of in a makeshift spot. It doesn't matter. I want to show you guys what happened and what sparked the motives for this show. Okay, let me go ahead and pull it up here. I want to make sure I fill out the whole chart and the whole screen. Give me a second here. So there was a tweet put out by somebody. It's called Tiermaker. Tiermaker, this guy named Tiermaker on Twitter came out with this thing. Now, if you're looking for my Twitter, it is RicoKnows TikTok, all one word. But he came out with this chart, and this chart was about the best head coaches in America. Now, like most charts, they don't even have anyone in the group of five. And there are some amazing coaches in the group of five and the FCS level. Shout out to all of them. I should probably do a separate episode when it comes to them. I'm letting you know that right now. I should probably do that. But for now, we're going to talk about the Power Five and these rankings this guy came up with. I don't agree with him at all. I think these are people who are judging team success and they equate it to the coach. And that's probably right in a lot of situations. Like if you just look at the wins, you just go, oh, that's a good coach, that's a bad coach. But that's not necessarily true, because there's some elite coaches at certain programs, and then there's some really underwhelming coaches at some perennial powers, at some schools that you wouldn't normally think about. So what I'm going to tell you guys to do is, if you want to join the conversation, if you're on TikTok, just move over to YouTube, put your question in. I will get to it eventually. But we're going to start attacking this. Now, he has these categories. He has bad head coaches, and you see the three teams here. He has below average head coaches. You see all the teams here. And then average head coaches, okay, good head coaches, great head coaches, and then elite head coaches, and Kirby Smart all by himself. First thing I want to say is I think whoever made this chart couldn't name all the coaches if they had to. Like, they don't know all the coaches in America. Obviously, I know every head coach. I know the majority of their coaching staff, whether it be offense and defensive coordinators, their position coaches. You get familiar with all these staffs when you study it as a profession, and if you study recruiting. Because in recruiting, a lot of these position coaches will be the reason why a particular player selects that school. And then if you study recruiting, that would say you then want to transition to studying the transfer portal, which is where I'm an expert. I know every player in the portal and where they're going. And when you study relationships, you'll know why certain players select certain schools. There'll be times a player hits the transfer portal, and I will go boldly make a prediction when it's nowhere on the internet. And the reason I know where they're going is, well, A, I could have talked to the player, which happens often. But B is I just look at depth charts. I look at their home of record, or where they're from, their hometown, and then I do some assessment on how the recruiting went initially. Usually within the last 2 years, somebody was recruiting them in their living room at their high school, and they have a relationship with that individual, and they might be parlaying that into an opportunity at a different school. It happens all the time. Literally, I'm not going to go crazy. I haven't even done the math on this, but I'm going to take a stab at it. 80% of transfers is a relationship-driven move. It is not playing time driven. It is a relationship driven move. They know someone on that staff. They have a previous relationship with them. And all in all, that to me equates to a really good coaching staff. If you have good position coaches and they're great at assessing talent, evaluating players, and convincing them to come to their school, they're great at NFL development, or an NFL pedigree, if you will. All these things are great. But if we're just talking about head coaches and what they bring to the table and how they do their job, I'm looking at this chart and I don't agree with it at all. So I boldly made a comment on Twitter, and I said I could do an entire episode on how bad this chart is, and that's what we're going to get to, okay? But I made it a little differently. I made the chart a little different. We'll start at the bottom. We'll work our way up. First and foremost, it's every Power 4 school. So we're going to talk about 60-something schools in this episode. Please pace yourself Understand, I'm not going alphabetical. I'm going to go by the category. So if you want to know about your coach and my assessment of your coach, please be patient. Please watch it. Oh, by the way, Gridiron Hoosier, I just followed you right now in the middle of the episode. Shout out to you, whoever you are. I typically don't follow a lot of people, but I wanted to get that out of the way. So first category of head coaches in the Power 4 is unproven head coaches. Unproven could be somebody who just got hired and they've never been a head coach at the FBS level. That would make you unproven. You're typically an offensive coordinator or a positions coach, and you're now at the FBS level and in the Power 4, which is it's a rarity, I would say, in the sense that they typically hire within the Power 4 structure. If you want to be a head coach in the Power 4, be a coordinator in the Power 4. Do not be a group of 5 head coach. Look at all these guys who got hired. Who are they? These guys who got hired in the Power 4, Jeff Libby coming over, former offensive coordinator at Oklahoma, now the head coach at Mississippi State. Yes, he's unproven. I'm not going to say he's bad. He hasn't done the job yet, and he's in a bad situation at Mississippi State, but he could be a pretty decent coach. But he came from a coordinator position at the Power 4 level. Bill O'Brien, coming from the NFL, it's a whole nother story. This is the second NFL hire by Boston College. First they had Hafley, it didn't work out, and now they have Bill O'Brien. I don't know why anyone assumes it's going to work out. I don't know. But good luck to Bill O'Brien. You hear about all these coaching staffs bragging about their NFL pedigree. How many NFL coaches they have on staff? NFL coaches on staff do not equate to success. I literally wrote a tweet, and I don't know how to go back and find it. I could find it, I guess, if I search for one of the coaches and my name. I wrote a tweet, and I listed out all the different NFL coaches who don't pan out at the collegiate level. So when you try to tell me, well, our coaching staff's great because we got NFL guys, that does not equate to success. It just doesn't, historically. It could be Sherman at A&M. It could be, obviously, Hafley at Boston College. I went all the way back to, like, the 80s. I started talking about some guys people forgot about. I want to say, was Francione in the pros? There's NFL guys left and right that came down and just did not get it done. I'm telling you, they didn't get done. I'm not talking about college guys going to the NFL and failing. I'm talking about NFL guys moving down to college and people assuming they're going to be great. That's not the case. That doesn't happen all the time. And so when people quote, like I get in these arguments, these debates with the Colorado fans, and they're like, our staff has more NFL. It's like, what are you talking about? That's not the key to success. It's just not. I want guys who get players to the NFL, not a bunch of dudes bragging about how they were in the NFL. I don't give a shit how well you played. I need to find a guy who can develop players to become great. Show me that track record. So Bill O'Brien's got an uphill battle. Being an NFL guy, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens if he can get back to it. Some of these guys do have college coaching experience, just not at the head coach at the Power 4 level, okay? Deshaun Foster, love everything he's doing. He's dominating in recruiting, winning in the transfer portal, bringing it back home. This is a kid who grew up in Tustin, California, Southern Section Division 5, going out there, having an amazing senior year, losing to Santa Margarita in the CIF championship, losing to Carson Palmer, and then going to UCLA. So homegrown, been there the whole time. Yes, played in the NFL, has NFL pedigree like everybody else. The only difference is he was an actual running backs coach at UCLA. So when I start seeing you have position coaching experience and you have the players believing in you and you know how to run a program and you want to bring back certain traditions, you want to bring back a certain spark to LA, I'm all in. I love Deshaun Foster and what he's doing at UCLA. Unproven head coach. Fair? Unproven head coach, and I think he's got a very difficult task ahead of him this season, although he has his quarterback of the future. I hope UCLA is patient with him because there's no real way for him to be successful this year. It reminds me a lot of Florida. Billy Napier's a good coach, obviously more experienced than Deshaun Foster, but there's no way he was going to be successful initially unless, you make Anthony Richardson a decent quarterback, which he wasn't. Okay, that's a whole nother story. Then you got Fran Brown leaving Georgia. This is a positions coach leaving Georgia, and now he's the head coach at Syracuse. A lot of hype, getting a lot of players. I don't see Syracuse being all that great this year, personally. It's a daunting task, but once again, unproven. Congratulations on the opportunity. Go be great. Unproven, Sherrone Moore. If you looked at that guy's chart, it makes me sick. He put Sherrone Moore at good head coach. How in the world is he a good head coach and equivalent to some of these other coaches when he's never been a head coach other than when he got an opportunity to be the head coach interim when Harbaugh was suspended and you're coaching the national championship team? You know, it's kind of hard to lose games when you have the best team every Saturday. I don't know if you're any good as a head coach. I just know that you drove a Ferrari and won a race. Congratulations. Michigan was amazing last year. They could have had anyone coaching them, and they were going to win those games. That's a fact. It actually happened. They had anyone coaching, and they still won games. So I don't agree with Moore being in that position at good head coach. For me, he's obviously unproven. He's never coached or been the head coach for an entire offseason, which is where seasons are won and lost, right? You win and lose in these preparation time frames. The football season doesn't have a ton of practice in it. You got a lot of preparation. You have a lot of analysis. There's not a ton of practice. You got to grow, learn your scheme, and do your thing in the offseason. The development needs to happen every offseason. The nutrition in every offseason. That's where people get stronger. You see a noticeable jump from a player in his freshman year to his sophomore year. What is it? It's the weight training, strength and conditioning program. It's the buy-in to the program, and it happens every offseason. If these young men down here, these 5 coaches who are quote-unquote unproven on my chart, if they don't implement their battle rhythm or their way of operating, they will fail. They will fail immensely. Hopefully their position coaches are experienced enough at this, and hopefully they are too, and they understand, and they can emulate known successful programs. That's what you're trying to do. There's some coaches around at the group of 5 level for sure. All they're doing is emulating what they did at the Power 4 level. Shout out to Georgia State. If you don't know, now you know. Now, we'll go to the next category. If you looked at this chart in front of you, they had Mississippi State, Virginia, and Vandy at the bottom. I obviously do not have Mississippi State, Virginia, and Vandy at the bottom. Only Virginia. The other two for me, in the bad category, bad head coaches, Sam Pittman at Arkansas. I've never seen someone do less with more. Maybe Jimbo Fisher. But somebody doing less with more. Sam Pittman had an amazing team at Arkansas. You have stud players that I can't even fathom, like NFL caliber guys, KJ Jefferson. You've had receivers for a couple years now, Jaheim Thomas at linebacker, and you're still not getting it done. Raheem Rocket Sanders, who's the other kid who just left? Was it AJ, the running back, and now at Oklahoma State, the backup? Look, man, they got studs at Arkansas, and they can't find ways to win. But it's really about how they're losing games. And the way they're losing it and the fashion they're losing it. They're losing by 50 to talent equivalent teams. That's a lack of buy-in in the coaching staff and the locker room. You're losing certain position coaches to the opposition. He just lost his running backs coach to TCU. I think Sam Pittman only looked good for a while there because of who he replaced, right? Because the worst head coach in the history of Arkansas was there right before there. And I'm talking about Chandler. I'm talking about Morris, Chandler Morris's father. Morris was the worst coach. If you guys want to look it up, go look up Morris. Morris didn't win an SEC game. Arkansas head coach before Sam Pittman did not win an SEC game. I think he was 0-18 in the SEC. I shit you not. Might have won 4 games the whole time he was there. So Sam Pittman coming in looked better, but Sam Pittman's a bad head coach. I think the coaches you see in the bad section are on the hot seat for me. I think all 3 of those coaches will be fired. You want me to make a prediction? You want me to make an assessment? All 3 of those coaches will be fired. Sam Pittman, Tony Elliott, and Dave Aranda at Baylor getting fired. Tony Elliott at Virginia. Tony Elliott, former offensive coordinator at Clemson, back when they were winning all the national titles. Shout out to Dabo having to find a way to be relevant after losing Tony Elliott. But it ain't that hard, bro. Tony Elliott's just not a good head coach. And let me say this, though. He probably is a good head coach. He probably is inspiring these young men to be good. And I know he can relate to them, and he's got all these great things going for him. But I want to be very clear. One part where you can make a mistake is in talent evaluation. You see, last year they signed Tony Muskett from the FCS level, and they said he's going to be the starting quarterback. And within 2 weeks, there was a quarterback controversy at Virginia, and everybody wanted Anthony Colandrea to be the starting quarterback at that point. When you miss on signing a quarterback from the FCS level and you got the wrong guy starting, that's on you as a head coach. That's on your staff for assessing talent incorrectly. Is Tony Muskett really that good? Probably not. Is he going to be the starter this year? We don't know. Colandrea is a gunslinger. Looks good to me. But how do you not address this then? Because if you have two quarterbacks battling it out, you don't have a quarterback. Any team out there, if you got two quarterbacks, you don't have one. If you got two quarterbacks, you don't have one. And you got guys in the area. Matthew Sluka, how can you not get Matthew Sluka to go to your team in Virginia and you lose him to UNLV? Holy Cross, back-to-back 1,200-yard rusher would be so dynamic for you, and you don't even land him. Or Jordan McLeod tearing it up at JMU. How can you not get him and let him go to Texas State? It's your inability to evaluate talent that has you losing games, starting the wrong players. And then Baylor, I think Baylor is their own worst enemy. I think Baylor signs so many players that I would never sign. They sign like character concern guys. They're just desperate for talented players. I get it. They're ignoring camaraderie and cohesiveness on their team. They signed Michael Trigg after getting kicked out of Ole Miss, former USC Ole Miss tight end Michael Trigg. He's now at Baylor. I'm not excited about that signing, but you lost your starting tight end. Where'd he go? TCU? Can't remember right now. I can tell you this. They had a 900-yard rusher in Reese as a freshman 2 years ago, and then last year they benched him because they brought in Dominic Richardson from Oklahoma State. It's just a misalignment of talent. Kyron Drones was on the bench at Baylor, could not see the field. Kyron Drones is one of the most explosive dual-threat quarterbacks in America, starting games for Virginia Tech right now, about to win 8 games at Virginia Tech. Kyron Drones is great, and you had him at Baylor, and you didn't play him because you thought Blake Shapen was the guy that was going to give you the most bang for your buck. RJ Martinez transfers in. Sawyer Robertson transfers in. You don't play them because you don't know how to assess talent. How do you miss on Ishmael Mahdi? That's a great running back in the state of Texas. Went to Houston Baptist, now at Texas State. Could start at running back for Baylor right now. You're missing on great players. And I get it. You're trying to sign them in the transfer portal after you miss. Dave Aranda's not a good coach. You guys remember who his linebackers coach was? You guys remember who his linebackers coach was? It was Joey McGuire, the head coach at Texas Tech. Or was he a tight ends coach? I'll tell you what he's not. He's not on your staff anymore because he was hired by Matt Rule. I think Dave Aranda gets fired. Before I go on to the below average coaches, I'm going to go to the chat. Thank you guys for being here today. If you're watching me on TikTok, just move over to YouTube, drop it in the chat, and we'll go. Shout out to Derek H. He says, yo, I'm not pulling up the chat on the screen, by the way, because I didn't drop it in the chat box. So I'll just read it off screen if you guys bear with me here. Connor, one of my favorite followers, says, I knew this was coming soon once you finished your UFC videos yesterday. Shout out to you, Connor. Thank you so much. Yes, I made a ton of UFC videos yesterday. If you didn't know, we got UFC fights starting today at 7 p.m. Eastern. In about 3 hours, we'll be live streaming the fights for the MVPs. We get it right every time. I'm batting over 80% on my locks. MVPs are eating. Everybody's making money. If you don't know, go to Patreon. It's like OnlyFans, but go to Patreon, get the app, download it, search RicoKnows, become an MVP, watch all the videos, win a ton of money. Or come watch the fights with us. Do one of the two. Armin, he's an MVP for the whole year. Armin says, what up, Rico? Love the live streams as always. Fire. Shout out to you, Armin. Armin did pay for the MVP package for the whole year. You can pay for a whole year. You don't have to do it month by month. I thought Sataki has done a really good job at BYU. Shout out to Derek Newcomer with how many obstacles he's had to overcome to make them winners in most of his seasons. You know, Derek, I'm going to talk about it when it comes up for BYU and Sataki. Obviously, he's a little higher up on the chart. One thing I'll say is when I think of BYU, I think of a very underwhelming team. I think a very underwhelming team, a team that doesn't quite measure up with what they're up against, yet somehow, some way, they always win a game they're not supposed to win. They're always competitive when you don't expect it. They cover the spread when you hate it. They're one of those teams we can't even bet against because of that. And I gotta give it to Satake in that regard. He's also a pretty long tenured coach. Been around for a long time. Chip Kelly, guy who was a head coach in the NFL, didn't get it done, so went back to college and has been inconsistent at best. Pren, that is the wrong example when I talked about NFL guys not making it in college. That is the wrong example. Chip Kelly is a phenomenal offensive genius, okay? He's at UCLA. He's losing recruiting battles left and right. Don't worry about people's success in the NFL. That doesn't matter. Whether you're good or not has no bearing on your college success. That's number one. Number two, Chip Kelly is a GOAT. Like, he's an all-time great offensive mind for the last 20 years. Don't even mention Chip Kelly as a substandard coach. Don't do it. That's a great coach. Just sometimes you don't make it. Sometimes you don't make it as a head coach and your team doesn't win. Yeah, I get it. He's still a great coach. Coach Norvell is an up-and-coming great coach. Is an up-and-coming coach. Shout out to you, Vic Newman. I think he runs the AAC table again. Well, he's not in the AAC anymore. He's in the ACC, and I don't think that's how that works, okay? He's not in the American Athletic Conference. He used to be at Memphis, but he's now in the ACC. Nate Freeman says, Rico, I just assisted with the University of Illinois camp this morning. I am a strength trainer. Word. I went up to this guy who was there working for 24/7 and asked if he knows RicoKnows. He actually laughed at me and said no. I said, that's why we are the way we are. Shout out to you, Nate Freeman. 24/7 Sports. They do know me. They do follow the channel. They do like all my stuff. I don't know how I can show it to you guys in here, but I don't want to get off this page because I want to keep this up. But yes, I deal with them often. Not a fan of them. I don't think they're a fan of me. Can't wait to meet them. I'm going to be at a camp next week. I'll be working as one of the scouts at the Next Gen 5-star camp to see the top 2026 and 2027 athletes. I got handpicked to do that. Shout out to them. Next Gen reached out to me. They know who I am, and these guys can pretend like they don't know. Welcome in, everybody. Nice to see this. What up, Steve? What record do you think the University of Houston is going to have? Smoothie, if you're asking for any records, any assessment of a team and things of that nature, I only give that to MVPs on Patreon or YouTube. Become an MVP. You will get access to that information. I've already broken down all the teams. I shouldn't say all the teams. I haven't done the Big 12 yet, I don't think. Big 12's last. So I'm currently in the SEC right now. The next team I'm going to break down is, I don't remember. It'll come up. I have a chart. I don't want to pull it up right now because you might see the results. But yeah, I break down every single team and tell you how many they're going to win. That is not a conversation I have out loud in front of people. People gamble on the results, on what I say. It's funny how bad the alumni wanted Aranda, and now this is what they have. Yep. What up, Rico? Just sent you a TikTok DM. Just gave you a hidden gem of the year. Sam Stewart, no point in doing that. I don't necessarily respond to TikTok DMs and hidden gems and the list of names and all this stuff. Get them on the waiting list. That's how I see the film. I think Bill O'Brien will prove he can turn around BC. He has coached before and is very familiar with the New England area. Yeah, Derek Newcomer, I don't think any of that matters. He doesn't have a quarterback that can throw, and they're in a very daunting ACC. It's pretty rough right now. The ACC's got they're very top loaded. They're very top heavy. Very top heavy. Hit the like button while you're here. Minimum effort, maximum appreciation. Thank you so much. We do have one like on the show so far. Yeah, if you guys want to hit the like button, you got to leave the show and then come back before you enter it. You got to hit the like button, or you can tap your screen and it should give you an option. But usually people have to leave the show, hit like, and then come back in. It does help. Thanks. I never really asked for it. Rico, you're right on the money again. Desmond Reed from Pitt is a beast. Thank you so much, Donovan Reed. Yeah. Went and watched film on Desmond Reed. This is a Western Carolina running back. He looked amazing, and I'm convinced he's going to be pretty solid in a 1-2 punch with Hammond. Pitt looks like they have a hell of a backfield. What's up, Rico? Should the group of 5 have their own playoff system? No, not at all. I think they should get their slice of the pie and get in on the Power 5 playoff system. Please do not shun them to their own playoff system. They need a chance to win the national title. Give them their one seat out of the top 12. I'm okay with that, as long as they have a shot. Just like mid-majors get a shot in March Madness, give me a shot with the group of 5. I don't care. Where should I hit you at then? Never hit me anywhere, Sam Stewart. Like I just said, watch the pinned video, get on the waiting list. That's how we do it. I will get back to the chat. We'll get back to Vernique's. I'm going to talk about the below average coaches now. So below average head coaches, you guys see it on the screen. Number one, below average head coach for me, and these are not in order by ability. Let me make this very clear. They're all equivalent on this level. So below average head coaches, Deion Sanders. For me, Deion Sanders doesn't know what he's doing as a head coach in a couple of regards. And I'm talking about game time decisions, in the moment decisions, overruling his coordinators. You saw it in the Stanford game come to light. You see it during games where he's just kind of standing there with his arms crossed and his headphones on, and he's not telling anybody what to do. He's just in the moment, kind of like, what's happening? Go back and watch all the replays, and he's just kind of standing there. Now, he has figured out the art of marketing. He's figured out the art of convincing people to believe in the hype. He's figured out the art of recruiting, I guess. Not really, but transfer portal recruiting. They've got all that part down. What they don't have down as a head coach is Saturday. And that's the biggest part. Saturday is the biggest part. I think he's failing in that regard, and it's going to take time. That comes with experience. Knowing when to call a timeout. Knowing when not to. Right? When to challenge a play and when not to. When to tell your offensive coordinator, hey, this is wrong or that is wrong. There were times they were just floundering last season, and they needed somebody to stop the floodgates, and he never once had that wisdom to do it or that experience. It's not there. Okay. Another below average coach just hired, Manny Diaz at Duke. I'm going to say below average because I've seen Manny Diaz coach before. Manny Diaz coaching is not very good. He's at Duke, though. They have some really good wide receivers. They have a good quarterback room. They have some good players. They're good defensively. They lost 2 players on the defensive line that I'm concerned about, but they still have a ton of talent in that room, and that's mainly because Mike Elko is a phenomenal coach and had that roster right, but Manny Diaz leaves a lot to be desired as a decision maker. Clark Lee. Everybody wants to like Clark Lee. Everybody wants to like him. Former defensive coordinator at Notre Dame, head coach at Vanderbilt. Yikes. So bad, and nothing comes of it. Now, what he did this offseason is he hired the entire New Mexico State staff to come join his offensive side of the ball. New Mexico State, a 10-win team in the group of 5. Jerry Kill's now on staff. Offensive coordinator just got hired. It feels like they tried to bring over everybody of relevance outside of their star linebacker who went to Arizona State. But for me, it's just very underwhelming in that regard. Below average. Ryan Walters. I love Ryan Walters. Former Illinois defensive coordinator, former coordinator of the year at Illinois 2 years ago. Just got his first head coaching job at Purdue. Brought a bunch of his friends to come be position coaches and coordinators, and it's just the results aren't there. But I want them to be there. I think Ryan Walters is a good coach. He has Hudson Card, but he's in a stacked Big Ten, and it doesn't look good for him. They did do some things right. They got Dylan Thieneman out of high school, 3-star, and they made him a 5-star and a future, first or second round draft pick. Got it. I like what they're doing, but if I have to sit down and compare you to your peers, I have to say you're below average right now as a head coach simply because of the results. That's the reality. I love Ryan Walters, though. I think Ryan Walters is more prepared for Saturdays than every one of these guys above him. As a matter of fact, when you look at this list, Ryan Walters has the most potential to be great. It's just he's in a bad situation. He has the most potential to be a great head coach. I already know these other coaches. I already know their ceiling. I don't know Ryan Walters' ceiling. I think he's great. I would play for that man, and I would send my kids to play for that man. If there's a young man out there and he asked me for advice on where he should go, I would tell him to go to Purdue. If they were on the short list. Purdue, Wisconsin, I believe in these types of programs. Indiana, they have amazing coaches. So something to think about without getting buried on the depth chart. Next coach is Billy Napier. Obviously, you got to say below average right now. Just being at Florida, you have a couple of things going for you when you're at Florida. You have ESPN and the propaganda machine making sure you have a great recruiting class every single year. There's only so many teams in America where you can show up, win 4 to 5 games, and still have a top 25 recruiting class. You win 4 or 5 games in the Big Ten. You win 4 or 5 games in somewhere in the Midwest, in the Mountain West, your recruiting class is going to reflect a 4 to 5 win team. If you win 4 to 5 games in the SEC, you're still going to have a top 25 class. That is the luxury you have because of ESPN's hype machine. So everybody just ignores the fact that Florida's results have been terrible, even with their quarterback playing amazing last year, right? I mean, utterly amazing. So Billy Napier has this 3 running back system he's been running for a long time, where he needs 3 good running backs. He has 2, he has 1. He's got a quarterback and all this. I don't care about all the pieces. I just want to tell you that when you have players and you're developing them and they become draft picks and you're not winning games, you remind me a lot of the underachieving LSU teams. And that's not a good thing. So I think he does less with more. Okay, I think he makes the right decisions on Saturdays, but he does less with more. Now, speaking of decisions on Saturdays, Mario Cristobal is a terrible coach. Great salesman, great recruiter, but I have Mario Cristobal here. Don't you dare get it twisted. Miami is loaded. Miami looks great for next season. I love everything about Miami. They dominated the transfer portal. But Mario Cristobal, as a human being, as a person, is not a great head coach. Not a great head coach. Did not have the wisdom and foresight and experience to call a knee at the end of the game last year against Georgia Tech. No, that right there is Deion Sanders-esque for me. You are dominant in the offseason. You are doing certain things right to market your program. You're getting them trending in the right direction. But Saturday, you don't have the wherewithal. You don't have the intestinal fortitude, the presence to make the right decision in the moment. And then Chaney fumbles the ball and Georgia Tech wins the game. This is happening at Miami, and it's bad. PJ Fleck, I'm going to say PJ Fleck is below average only because Minnesota's not winning the games they should. There was about 3 games last year they should have won that were close, and they didn't get it done. They've also been assessing the quarterback position all wrong. He loses Kirk Soraka back to Rutgers. He loses his running back coach and Kenny Burns to be the head coach at Kent State. So he is having to reinvent himself and find a way to do it. But what I saw was a guy in PJ Fleck who, I don't know who recruited Darius Taylor. He's an amazing running back. He'll be great. And he's an NFL guy and all that. But whoever recruited Darius Taylor, I don't think he's on the team anymore. I think Kenny Burns probably did that. Because Kenny Burns is a great coach. And he's just he got a raw deal at Kent State. But when I look at PJ Fleck, he went to Western Michigan and got a bunch of transfers from there in 2022, and none of them panned out. Top linebacker, didn't pan out. Top wide receiver, didn't pan out. Top running back, Sean Tyler, back-to-back 1,000-yard rusher, didn't pan out. And I'm saying, when you whiff like that on 3 in a row of some of the most elite transfers you landed, we're sitting back going, yeah, they have a great transfer portal class. They landed these guys. And they did not evaluate the talent correctly. Now they have a loaded running back room. Now they got Max Brosmer coming in from this FCS level, which I truly believe in. Some of the receivers are very good. But it's just one of those things where you got to evaluate the talent better. You can't miss, and then you need to get results. Speaking of getting results, Brett Venables is here at below average. I could have moved him up to average, to be honest, but he's down here. I know Brett Venables, former Clemson defensive coordinator, moved over to Oklahoma. Everybody loves it. You're excited. You want Oklahoma to be great. If you guys don't remember, I was on the Oklahoma bandwagon before any results. This was 2 years ago. I saw them in a bowl game against Florida State, and I told everybody, hey, Oklahoma's going to be very good in 2023, guys. Everybody started laughing at me. You don't know what you're talking about. They suck. They only won 5 games, 6 games, whatever. You don't know what you're talking. I'm like, guys, they're going to be a 9+ win team. They're going to be amazing. And they beat Texas. And they were amazing. I was right. But their coach is not giving them any advantage on a Saturday. Nothing he's doing. The defense is all returning this year. They still have yet to perform to the echelon or level that you expect them to. They're still playing close games against teams like UCF that should not be happening. So I'm still very frustrated with Brett Venables, the coach. Great in the offseason. Great motivator. Did some smart things. Brought back the strength and conditioning coach. That's what am I going to use the term here? He's legendary, if you will. So that's incredible. But if you look at Venables as a head coach, I haven't seen the results, so I keep him at below average. Before I go to the average, I'm going to go back to the chat. If you put something in the chat, I got you. YouTube, if you're watching, move over to TikTok. Or I'm sorry, TikTok, if you're watching, move over to YouTube. Put it in the chat. I will answer the question, the comment, the concern. We're moving up the chart. We're going next. We'll be talking about the average coaches. Then we're getting to the good coaches, great coaches, and then the elite. But we'll be talking about the average here shortly. Let's go back over. So I stopped at Vernix here. Hey, shout out to Vernix. He's Verinx. I want to say your name right, bro. Verinx has been a day one follower, rocks with the channel all day, and it's crazy. I have 180,000 followers, and there are some of you. I have over 180,000. I shouldn't say that. I have literally over 200,000 if you include YouTube, Twitter, and TikTok. It's over 200-something thousand. But I remember certain names, and Verinx is one of them. So shout out to him. Good guy. So what are your thoughts on Satterfield at Cincinnati? Why hasn't he translated in the Power 4? So first and foremost, I think Satterfield does translate in the Power 4, and I think he's doing some great things at Cincinnati. I really do. When I look at what they're doing in recruiting and the transfer portal, they're winning. And he's doing the best he can. But I think he has a limited budget, and I think he's not very likable. I think Satterfield is not like the results are there. You got to respect it. I don't know what you mean by why it hasn't translated to the Power 4. He was the coach of the year in the ACC 3 years ago, 3 years ago now at Louisville. But obviously he burned a lot of bridges. He's the type of dude, when you break up with him, he's like, it's over, bro. We don't need to be friends. I'm moving on. You move on. Remember, he got hired at Cincinnati, and his players found out via FaceTime. He didn't meet him in person, and it wasn't because he's not a man and he didn't do it face-to-face like Coach Prime, da-da-da. Nah, bro. I'm out here. I'm trying to go meet my players. I'm trying to go meet my new team. I ain't worried about this old shit. You keep bringing up old shit. Like, I don't care. I'm out this joint. I love it. I think it's counterproductive if you want to maintain relationships with certain things, and it probably looks terrible in the public's eye, but I think he's all right. I'm not his biggest fan. I'll be real. I'm not his biggest fan, and it looks like a rough, daunting task, but you got to remember he's going to make it. Like, he's going to be decent. You got to remember that he's not Luke Fickell. You don't have Luke Fickell. You got to stop comparing him to Luke. I think he's a decent person, man. I think he's a decent guy. He's on to the next one. It is what it is, right? It's football. It ain't friends. That's the way he thinks about it. So, great question. Sam Stewart says, do you believe McGregor ends his career now? Oh, no. Conor McGregor, they said he's out with some broken toes or something. I don't know. I don't think he ends his career. The dude wants to get paid one more time. Let him fight. It's all good. Do you think Deion's recruiting will slow down now that we're seeing he clearly is not a great coach? No, not necessarily. I think you have to recruit a specific type of player. You know, I talk to a lot of the elite recruits in America. None of them have Colorado in their top 3. None of them have Colorado in their top 10. They're not interested. But there is a certain type of player that may be highly productive on an unglamorous team. A team that doesn't quite get all the clicks and highlights, and those players will find it appealing and want to show up. That's the reality of the situation. So they'll find them. They'll find the guys for them. They do have a lot of good young talent on the team. They do. I just don't know if Coach Brown will be there to develop them, and I don't know if he has that capability. I don't know. We haven't seen that. So when you start developing players to get drafted, then come talk to me. But I haven't really seen that. What I've seen is players that you convince to come to the team that will probably be drafted regardless of whether or not you develop them. I want to find the players that got developed, that were hidden gems and got developed without anyone else knowing. Because we see it all the time at other programs. Like at other healthy programs, you'll see a 3-star or a no-star kid go from just walking on or whatever it is to being drafted. I see it all the time. I see it every single year. But it's always a K-State kid. It's always an Alabama kid or a Georgia kid. It's always some of these other programs that have these perennial powers. So instead of showing me, well, Travis Hunter's going to be a top pick. Yeah, Travis Hunter would have been a top pick no matter where he went to school, no matter who he played for. Don't use that example for me. Use a different one, right? Try to find a different one. And when you tell me you brought in 50 transfers last year and none of them got drafted, then who did you elevate? Who did you elevate of the 50 transfers you brought in? I'm trying to figure that out. I understand Shedeur. I understand Travis. I got that. I want to know who you elevated to get drafted. I don't see it. Nope. I see a bunch of clicks. No results. So I don't think it slows down. I think it's just a specific type of player you can attract with that type of track record. Trust. I talked to a lot of the elite players, bro. They're not on the final three for any of those guys. What do you think about Colorado as a whole? Revamped offensive and defensive line look good as well. DBs are getting cooked though. J07, I don't think of it like that at all. I think they're going to be in a rough spot. Their offensive line, they added players from UConn. They added players from UTEP, Houston. You added 3 offensive linemen from some of the worst offensive lines in America, and you didn't add the best players. You added like the second or third best player on those teams. You didn't add the best offensive lineman from those teams. You can't add those offensive linemen and win the Big 12, right? A 10-win Oklahoma team was 3rd in the Big 12 last year. Think about that. And the national champ runner-up was TCU. They didn't win the Big 12. Like, the Big 12 is so deep, people don't even understand what it is. Like, they don't understand how great it is. You got to sit down and study those teams. They're real. So, it is what it is. As far as DBs getting cooked, that happens at practice. That's what's supposed to happen. What up, Rico? Ready for the live stream tonight. MVPs eat again. Shout out to TJ, one of the best. Yes, been an MVP for the whole damn year now. You don't know what you're talking about at all. You know nothing new. Hey, John Coplay. John, you're on my channel. Tell me I don't know what I'm talking about, man. Go somewhere, dude. Make your own channel, bro. You know what you're talking about. Make a channel and start talking and see if anybody gravitates to your shit. See if they care what you're talking about. John, that's all you got to do. That's all I ever did. I never once walked past a homeless dude and been like, you don't make shit. I've never done that in my life. I never once walked past somebody who was, ignorant, uneducated, and told them they're not smart. I'm telling you right now, dogs don't bark at parked cars. Dogs don't bark at parked cars, bro. I ain't a parked car. I'm moving. You're barking at me because I'm moving. It's traction, buddy. Tony Elliott should have stayed at Clemson. Ugh. Riveting shit, John. Go talk about it in a video. See if anyone cares. I'm ready to eat again tonight. There you go, Derek Newcomer. Everybody's ready to eat. I was just messing with you. I was trying to get a reaction. We don't do that shit around here. That's why we're not on TikTok. You will be blocked and you will never see the channel again. We don't troll around here. We have a show. Just so you're aware. We don't troll around here. We're grown adults. Sit down. Sit it out. Let me get back to the show. Now we're going to look at average coaches. And it pains me to say this because being an FBS coach is one of the most prestigious things in America, right? There's only 134 of these jobs in America. So highly competitive. And these men who are average are actually really good at their job. But you call them average because you're comparing them to their peers. So it's cool. Wake Forest, Dave Clawson. Love what he does. Makes the most out of nothing. Tries to do the best he can. He's a good leader of men, inspires his men. It's unfortunate he's at Wake Forest and he probably can't win more than anticipated. That's just the way it is. Unfortunate. Matt Campbell. Once again, Iowa State. Recruiting his ass off, leading his team, doing great things. They just hit on a freshman quarterback in Rocco Beck. They got amazing wide receivers. I love their secondary. Here they are. Sonny Dykes. Some will tell you Sonny Dykes is a great coach. Fun fact for you, Sonny Dykes never played football. Sonny Dykes never played football that I know of. I don't think he ever played college football. He's one of the few head coaches who's never played at any echelon, but he's a great coach and a great mind in football, and he's running TCU as best he can. That's where I'm at on it. I don't think Sonny Dykes is a better coach than Gary Patterson, and Gary Patterson doesn't have a job. Brent Key, I'm only saying Brent Key's average because of the results. I love everything Brent Key's doing at Georgia Tech. The former offensive line coach at Alabama. I think Brent Key has all the potential in the world to be a great head coach, and he needs to keep elevating Chris Winkie from quarterbacks coach, offensive coordinator. Keep that guy on your staff. He's amazing. Troy Taylor, no business being an average coach. He's at Stanford. This is a guy who worked his way up from like the high school ranks, if you will. He's been working his way up in that Northern California area. He's doing what he's comfortable with. And a former Sacramento State head coach, was great there. And then he's now at Stanford. I like Troy Taylor a lot. Very likable guy. Obviously just knocked it out the park, getting Elijah Brown out of Modern Day in recruiting. We'll see what happens. Kenny Dillingham, really young to be a head coach, former offensive coordinator at a bunch of programs you might have heard of, like Oregon, Auburn, Florida State, things like that. He's just a young offensive mind. I want to say he was playing in high school, got injured, couldn't play anymore, so he started coaching at his high school. Was a perennial power in Arizona, worked his way up from there, got into the college ranks really fast. And Kenny Dillingham looks really young if you see him. You would think he's a kid. You would think he's one of the interns on the team, a graduate assistant of some sort. He's a ball boy, but no, he's in charge, and I think he's a good coach. I have him at average just because he hasn't achieved anything. Scott Satterfield, talked about him earlier. He's been around for a while, very unlikable, but he wins. Yes, he regressed every single year while at Louisville. Yes, he's at Cincinnati now. They don't look good, but if Sorsby can lead him, you guys got to go watch Sorsby tape. Sorsby is a great quarterback out of Texas, what earned his way into the Indiana starting quarterback role, and then he just transferred to Cincinnati. I think Sorsby is him, and Cincinnati's got one hell of a receiver core. Go look at those receivers. Cincinnati's wide receiver core is better than Colorado's. Yep, go look at them. Talent-wise, if we had tryouts tomorrow, Cincinnati's got better receivers. And you guys will hate hearing that, but it's the truth. Just go watch them. California, Justin Wilcox, some would tell you he's on the hot seat. I don't think he is. I think being at an academic institution like California and winning the way he does, it's good enough. It should be good enough. He's got a way to figure it out. They score a lot of points. They have an exciting brand of football. I think Cal should be fine. They're in the ACC this year. They're going to be okay. They have good quarterback play, great wide receivers. Cal's cool, and obviously they have Jaden Ott. Go run some shit, bro. Go do what you do. Brett Brennan at Arizona just got hired. Former head coach at San Jose State. You might not be impressed with San Jose State, but knowing how they recruit and knowing what they used to be. San Jose State used to be one of the worst teams in America for many, many years. I remember this kid in high school. His name was Ferguson. Lamar Ferguson? Ferguson. He's a running back in high school. He rushed for over like 2,000 yards out of Inglewood, I think. They used to run the wing T, and he went to San Jose State. So I was super fan. This was way back in the 90s, early 2000s. So I started following everything San Jose State ever did from that point forward, from like the mid-90s to now. And one of the worst teams in America for many, many years. And then out of nowhere, I think it was the COVID year, I think they won 7 games. It was incredible. And now he's at Arizona. I'm saying he's an average coach, but his staff is great. His running backs coach, amazing. Zoe is on my Twitter. He's talked to me before. Amazing. Shout out to them. Shout out to Arizona. BYU, there's Kalani Sitake, very long tenured coach at BYU, having to make the best of what he's got, but he don't have much. BYU's pretty bad talent-wise. They've been developing players to transfer to Utah for a while now, and it's not good. Shane Beamer at South Carolina. I love Shane Beamer, man. He's got his quarterback. Lenora Sellers is the quarterback. He's got his team. Got great linebackers in the transfer portal. Rated Pitt for some of the best defenders. Rated some wide receivers out of Coastal Carolina that you need to know about. They got a good team. They got good receivers and good linebackers coming in. They need an offensive line. I like Shane Beamer a lot. Please give him a chance to win at South Carolina. Let's hope they steal some more signals and he can get better. But I like Shane Beamer a lot. I do. I like him a hell of a lot better than Mike Locksley, and I have Locksley here just because he's an average coach in Maryland, man. He's an average guy. His offensive staff was falling apart. I believe one of his co-offensive coordinators got a DUI last year. I didn't like the way they ended the season. They were on the trajectory to be the 4th or 5th best team in the Big Ten over the last 2 years, and it did not happen, and I think a lot of that falls on your head coach. Speaking of underwhelming and not getting it done, Joey McGuire's here. Last year, Texas Tech was a huge disappointment. Might have been at quarterback, might have been because of injury. Shout out to Tyler Shuck. But for me, Joey McGuire and his staff need to produce this year. Joey McGuire could easily move up to above average if he produces, and he hasn't. Then there's Neil Brown. 2 years ago, Neil Brown would have been down here at bad. Every West Virginia fan in the world was telling me Neil Brown needs to be fired. writing me left and right, Neil Brown hot seat, Neil Brown hot seat. And I said, guys, he's not going to get fired. And I explained to you there's a booster that's in charge of everything at West Virginia, and he's not going to let his guy get fired because he paid for that guy to get that seat. And they're going to ride it out. And that booster is the owner of the Arizona Diamondbacks. He's also the same guy who made sure Rich Rodriguez didn't go to Alabama so they could keep him back when they were winning everything. Okay? What I'm saying is Neil Brown's not going anywhere. And he worked his ass off last year, coached out of his mind, and he's got a hell of a team on his hands. West Virginia is one of them hidden gems nobody's talking about. They're great. Amazing running backs, great wide receivers, one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12. West Virginia's got it. Secondary, on point. I love everything about West Virginia. David Braun, Coach of the Year last year for me. David Braun did something Coach Prime could never do. David Braun inherited a 1-11 team. Yep, Northwestern was 1-11. David Braun got him. His coach got fired. David Braun was a North Dakota State defensive coordinator, transferred in to be the defensive coordinator. He's at Northwestern. Then they have this hazing incident, and they go and fire their coach. So they're like, yo, Fitz got to go. I guess David Braun's the new head coach. They didn't bring in 30 transfers. They got a bunch of rich kids. They got a bunch of bookworms. This man just knows what he's doing, gets the most out of his team. He didn't bring in a bunch of transfers. He coached a 1-11 team and had them winning 8 games. And they beat Utah in the bowl game. Don't tell me, oh, well, they beat a bunch of nobodies in the Big Ten. No. The Big Ten is home of the national champs. And Northwestern won 8 games. David Braun did what Coach Prime could never do. He won twice as many games as him because that man has experience coaching. He's a defense coordinator. He knows what to do. He knows when to stop everybody and say, yo, this ain't happening. Northwestern, amazing team. And David Braun was the reason why. Now this year, they might regress. Their quarterback just jumped in the portal and left and went to Iowa. Brett Bielema should never have gotten his contract extension. I think he's damn near below average. I kept him at average. But this is a guy who had an all-time great team 2 years ago and only won 8 games with them. They had a chance to get double-digit wins, and they did not get it done. They had a first-round running back. They had a first, second, and third round caliber players on that team 2 years ago. They had a guy drafted in the first, second, and third round. They had everybody. And then you lose Ryan Walters, who's now the head coach at Purdue. You lose your defensive coordinator, and now kids are coming out of high school going, I want to go to Illinois. They develop NFL caliber DBs. DBU. Bro, the guy that did all that is no longer at Illinois. He's at Purdue. Stop going to Illinois. If you think you're going to get developed, you're not. They need you, but you're not getting developed. I think Brett Bielema leaves a lot to be desired. He got a huge contract extension based upon the hard work that some of these other guys did. And I think they're going to continue to fall flat on their face, and Illinois is going to regret that contract. They already have after 1 year. Okay? Before I go over the good coaches, I'm going to go back to the chat. So let's go back to the chat. You got to change your name to Rico Hates Colorado. You definitely got knowledge for sure, but yo, hate for Colorado is diabolical. Eric Braswell, I do not hate Colorado. I think you have it severely misunderstood. I analyze 134 teams. I use points of reference that people will know and understand. But to say that I hate Colorado is absurd. I don't care what jersey you wear. I'm a supporter of players and coaches. I don't care where they're at. What jersey color they wear is irrelevant. What colors the thread is that they wear every day does not matter to me. So when you say Colorado, that doesn't mean anything to me. I know the individual players, talk to them daily. I know the coaches. I don't talk to them anymore. I used to. Apparently, they got a cold shoulder. Apparently, they don't want to talk to me anymore. Their feelings got hurt. Their widow feelings got hurt. But to say I have hatred towards Colorado it's not true. A player could transfer into Colorado, I'm supporting that player. A player could depart Colorado, I'm supporting that player. It has nothing to do with the jersey or the location. You've misunderstood what I do. TJ, I am D-Rock in Discord. Shout out to you. Man, I think Matt Campbell should be in good. Does well for what he gets at ISU. That's true until you see your team falling apart due to gambling scandals. Until you see certain players, until you lose your entire running back room because you picked the dude who ran for 300 yards in the snow when no one else could. Like, Abu Sama's not the greatest running back in that room. You assess the talent wrong. There's some things just being done decision-wise that I don't agree with. That's all. Matt Campbell's fine. He's fine. What did I say he was? I said average, right? Yeah, average. Look at the other guys on the average. Dude just played in the national title game 2 years ago. I said he's average. I mean, there's some studs on the average list. It's not the end of the world. But let's go talk about these good coaches. Hold on. Let me get back to the list here. Malzahn never played as well. Oh, there's some coaches. Gus Malzahn never played. Yep. What are your thoughts on what Herman is doing at FAU? So obviously I don't have any group of 5 coaches listed here, but we can talk about Herman. Obviously I thought he got a raw deal at Texas. I thought he was good at Texas, but they just wanted to go hire Sarkisian, so they got rid of him. But if you go look at his results, they're pretty decent at Texas. He was elite at Houston, good at Texas, and now he's at FAU, and he's trying to make it in this new era where there's, there's transfers and stuff, and it's difficult for him. But I want him to do well. I'm cheering for him. Adrian Candelario says, Rico, that's just not true. Tyler Johnson and Justin Mays perform very well in their respective teams. Colorado definitely has the talent to make a bowl game. So, once again, I don't know. I'd assume there's homers in the chat, and I'm not here to debate. I don't like debating sports, but that's just not true. Tyler Johnson and Justin Mayers performed very well at their respective teams. They were not the best players on their team. The best players on those teams actually got drafted. They're in the NFL. No players at Colorado have been drafted to this point. And more importantly, even Byers leaving UTEP, he went to Florida State. He was better. Okay. There's players leaving Houston that followed their coach to Missouri because their offensive line coach went to Missouri. They were better than Tyler Johnson. Like, people don't understand what they're saying because they don't know the teams and they don't know the history of it all. Now, saying that they have the talent to make a bowl game, completely irrelevant, has really nothing to do with the conversation. I actually have my prediction on Colorado already made. And to say something like that, you don't quite understand where I stand on the team, and there's no reason to say that to me. Like, there's no point in making that statement. It doesn't resonate with me, and it doesn't contradict anything that I'm saying. So it's not even a point to have. It's kind of like coming in here going, no, you're wrong, Jordan's the best, and you're just kind of sitting there going, well, what are you talking about? Whoever said he wasn't, right? Whoever said Colorado didn't have the talent to go to a bowl game? No one's ever said that. When I assess this chart, it's about head coaches and who's above average or below average. I'm watching these other coaches do more with less, and the results are on the field on Saturdays. You're talking about some charts, some ratings, some idea, right? The idea of what Colorado is versus the reality of what they are two different things. The idea is they're the wave and they're great. The reality is they haven't beaten a team with a winning record and there's nothing great about them. Like, that's the difference, right? When you start going, well, they got the best receivers in the world. Yeah, man, they got the best receiver from Vanderbilt, one of the worst teams in the SEC, and FAU, one of the worst teams in Conference USA. So when you or they moved over to the American, what you're really looking at is like, yeah, those are good players. Neither one of those guys could start on about 20 teams in America. There's about 20 teams in America where they couldn't start at all. And it's the same way people try to convince me Xavier Weaver or who's the kid, Jimmy? Like, when you look at those guys, they came from a 1-11 South Florida team. Do you guys understand that? They came from a 1-11 South Florida team, and you try to convince me they're NFL draft picks, and they're not. There's literally 30-something wide receivers getting drafted, and these guys are not in the top 30. That's why you guys don't understand what you're saying, is because you're not paying attention to results. You're not paying attention to origin. You just showed up and went, these are the best players. Look at all these guys. They're so amazing. I got well-off videos. Listen, if you don't have well-off videos of every single receiving core to compare them to, you're just looking at something going, yeah, that's amazing. It's like your buddy freestyling on the porch or something. Yo, you could do this, man. You're amazing. You're the best freestyle rapper I know. Da-da-da. And you're like, yo, bro, are you serious right now? He's the best in this neighborhood. Get real. That's where it's at, man. It's crazy that people don't really assess talent a certain way. They don't really understand. Like, Jamal Edrin was the star wide receiver at FAU 2 years ago. Jamal Edgerrin was the star, most dependable wide receiver at FAU 2 years ago. LaJohntay Wester was on that team. Jamal Edgerrin was the deep play threat and the best receiver on that team. The only one with NFL caliber accolades. And he's now at Purdue, tore his ACL last year, and nobody's talking about him. But 2 years ago, he was better than everybody over there. And he's now at Purdue, and no one's talking about him. But one guy leaves, and he's at Colorado, and now you're all convinced he's a first-round draft pick or something. It's just weird to me. It's not real. Brennan Rice left Colorado and went to USC, and he's a seventh-round draft pick. I don't know what to tell you guys, man. You guys don't quite understand how it works. There's 30-something wide receivers getting drafted, and none of them are on your team. Now, is Will Shepard any good? Yes. Is LaJohntay Wester any good? Yes. They're good players. But they're not better than a single wide receiver on Miami. Like in Miami's starting lineup, they're not better than a single one of the receivers at Oregon, Miami, fucking Memphis, Oklahoma. Like when you go watch the film and actually know the players, you're like, whoa, there's not a single offensive lineman at Colorado that could start at about 30 schools. 30 schools have 7 offensive linemen better than a single person at Colorado. And that's why the results look the way they do. And that's why it's 40-0 against a perennial power like Oregon, who didn't make the playoffs. Like Oregon, who didn't win the Pac-12. I don't think Colorado's in the top 8 teams in the Big 12. The top 8. They're not in the top 8. Oklahoma State was in the championship last year. They returned all their starters. They were in the Big 12 championship. Oklahoma State, you can't compare them to. West Virginia, not a chance in hell they're West Virginia. Kansas, Texas Tech, UCF, Iowa State. I'm missing one more. But, I mean, it's huge. It's enormous what they're up against, and people don't realize it. You guys are you watch too many videos about teams that aren't the opposition. Like, you don't know the opposition, so you're just convinced your team is here. You're just convinced your team is in this area. It has to be Kirby Smart. Oh, we're getting there. Roll Tide, roll. Shout out to you, Lewis Hinton. Colorado not winning a game in November, going to be a tough road. Yeah, they're not going to win their last 4 road games. Not just the game in November, their last 4 road games. I disagree. I think Cincinnati can 100% lose to Colorado. I don't know where that came from. You see, that's what I'm talking about, Adrian. No one thinks Cincinnati can beat Colorado. No one has put that anywhere on anywhere. So for you to write that, it doesn't mean anything to me. No one has said Cincinnati can beat Colorado. Cincinnati wide receivers are better than Colorado's. You've never looked at them. You don't know Cincinnati's wide receivers. But Tyron Smith, coming out of UTEP, former Texas A&M transfer, Tyron Smith is a better slot receiver. Henderson, coming over from Florida. Like, you just don't know them. It's crazy. It's hard to have a conversation with people who don't know the opposition. They just say their piece. It's fucking nuts. I've never heard of it. San Jose used to be able to sling it all over the field in the early 2000s. Yeah. Rico, thoughts on Zachary Franklin? My bad, you misspelled his name, so it threw me off. Zachary Franklin in Illinois. I thought he was going to tear it up at Ole Miss last year. So, yeah, if you watched all my videos, you know how I felt about Zachary Franklin coming out of UTSA, right? One of the most productive. He is the leading productive returning receiver in college football next year. He's 23rd all-time in yards. He is... or maybe he's 23rd in touchdowns, 90th in yards, all time in college football history. And he's got a whole season to go. But he's number 1 among all the active wide receivers in career yards, receptions, and touchdowns. Unfortunately for him, he got to Ole Miss and he found out what all you guys aren't quite understanding. You can be a highly productive group of 5 wide receiver, and if we go line up tomorrow, you're not better than the receivers at a particular Power 5 school. So one of the most productive wide receivers in the history of Group of 5 shows up to Ole Miss and finds out, oh my God, there's levels to this. And I'm the 5th string wide receiver, 6th string wide receiver. I'm never going to see the field. I made the wrong move. And that's exactly what happened. Now he's going to Illinois. I hope it works out for him. I do, because I like Zachary Franklin. I think he's good, but I don't think the allure and the domination. We now know there are 4 people better than him at Ole Miss. We know this. They lined up, all the receivers returned except for one, and he couldn't beat out Dalton Wade. He couldn't beat out Wade. Obviously, he couldn't beat out any of the studs, but I'm talking about true freshman passing him on the depth chart. It sucks, because I really like the kid. And yes, I thought very highly of him. Just nothing he can do. Rico gives credit when Colorado gets good players. I don't think he hates Colorado at all. I don't. The groupies are unreal. How do you feel about Shane Beamer in South Carolina? D. Grant, rewind the show. I already talked about him. Zona, K-State, and Utah, all better. Oh, I left out Utah, K-State, and Zona. My bad, Steve. Those are the other 3. Wow. I was already at 6, and there was 3 more. That's on me, dude. They still have Smith at Oregon State on this list. LOL. It's June, guys. Got June. I put it. This is my list. Derek. I wrote that by accident. That's a typo on my part. This is my list. Thank you so much. Yeah, 10 more Saturdays to college football. So 10 more Saturdays to college football. Why is Matt Campbell so low if the results are good? Genuine question. There's some issues there. Lissandro. If you haven't noticed, some good players have been leaving Iowa State in the transfer portal, and I equate that to head coach decision making. So that's how that goes. The results, what do you consider the good results to be? What do you consider good results? I see good statistical results. I don't see good wins results. Like, I want to see more wins before I believe in it. And stop losing your players like Hunter Decker to gambling. But back to what I was saying. Having control of a good program is where it matters. Let's talk about the good coaches now. Good coaches. Jonathan Smith says Oregon State, obviously Michigan State. Jonathan Smith is a good coach. He makes the most out of nothing. I think he makes an incredible culture. He knows what it takes to win. He gets the most out of his players. You're in a little brother situation at Oregon, and you're at Oregon State, and you got to beat Oregon, and he did it. And he did it in an impressive fashion. He built a blue-collar team, and now that he's at Michigan State, he's expected to do the same thing. And I think it'll happen over time, man. I really like Jonathan Smith as a coach. Yes, there's been some lies, some false promises, but what has never been a false promise or a lie is the results. And his results speak for themselves. I believe in his results wholeheartedly. Shout out to him. James Franklin, Penn State. I got him under good because Penn State's good. They're not great. They're good, they're not great. And James Franklin is building good teams in that regard. But the results aren't what you want him to be. So he's stuck there at good. He is. And I know some people don't think he's great. He wants to be fired. They're dumb. Anybody saying he should be fired doesn't know coaching, and that's just the way it goes. Dan Lanning. So the difference between a good and a great coach for me is somebody who's gotten more out of their players than I think others could. And I don't think Dan Lanning's done that yet. As the head coach at Oregon, he's recruited his ass off. He's got a good team. He's doing the most with it. He's doing as best he can. He needs to be consistent year in and year out. Build a perennial power at Oregon. I'm really high on Oregon this year. I hope they win a lot. But for me, Dan Lanning needs to get the results on Saturdays. Okay? He really does. He's going to have to show that he can recover from losing a secondary coach. And they've been panicking and filling in with a ton of secondary guys in the transfer portal. When I tell you they signed a ton, it started with Alexander out of UTSA initially, and then they started going with Mohammed. They just started signing anybody they could. It looked crazy. So we'll see what Oregon can do there. Steve Sarkisian, Texas. I have him as good. I think with all the weapons he has and all the talent he has, he needs to win something for me to say he's great. He's not elite for me, and he's not great simply because you have all the resources in the world. And your results should speak for themselves. You should not be slipping up and losing to teams like Oklahoma. You should not be slipping up and losing in the playoffs. Like, he should be winning it all at Texas. They have those resources. Go get it done. Greg Schiano, beast of a coach. Just stuck at Rutgers. Just trying to build something out of nothing. Picked up Kirk Soraka back at offensive coordinator. Back in their heyday, they were both great together. Needs to hit on a home run threat. Right now, they have Monungai at running back. He's a pretty decent dude. But they need to find a real quarterback. Ethan Kaliak-Manis is not the guy. And they need to find, you get a 4-star quarterback. It just needs to pan out. Gavin Wimsatt didn't pan out. It's not his fault, per se. But Greg Schiano needs to really come together. But the defense is competitive. They'll cover the spread a few times. They'll frustrate you. But they are in the Big Ten, and it's tough, man. They need to find their Ray Rice. Remember, they found Ray Rice? They need to find their Taekwon Underwood. They need to find their star receivers that nobody's talking about in the upper Northeast. And it's going to be hard to do with a team like Syracuse getting a good coaching staff in Fran Brown who's going to attract some of those talented players. But when I assess Rutgers wide receivers, they have a 6'7" wide receiver nobody's talking about. They have some players that just kind of stick out to me. So I like Rutgers a lot. Gus Malzahn, a known commodity in the coaching world at UCF. Just keep coaching, man. Just keep winning, and you'll be here. This good category is where these perennial powers just stay. These guys, all the guys on this list, have a really easy time finding employment, right? They just get hired somewhere else. If it doesn't work out one place, it'll work out at another. They're good coaches. Rhett Lashley leaving Miami as an offensive coordinator, going to SMU. Man, SMU's, I think they're on the come up. And I think Rhett Lashley's a huge part of the reason why he is getting a ton of transfers, a ton of help. One of the things he did smartly is his defensive coordinator came over from Liberty and brought a lot of good players, and their defense is playing out of this mind. And they assess talent different from other people. Like, they have a defensive lineman that's amazing. They have linebackers that are both of them. Both are linebackers. They got a linebacker transfer from Temple and another kid that came over from Liberty. Both of them are great. I like everything about SMU. I do. SMU, they feel like a mini Miami. And now they're in the ACC. Let's go see if you can put your money where your mouth is, win some games. I like Rhett Lashley a lot as a coach. Pat Narduzzi, people don't like him. Pat's pit tough, bro. And he makes NFL caliber players all the time. I think Pat Narduzzi, unfortunately for him, Pitt doesn't have the money. But they get a lot of players into the NFL. They get a lot of players into the Hall of Fame. They get a lot of players. In comparison to Penn State, Pitt gets players that are more successful at the NFL level than Penn State. They really do. They're getting the same. Maybe Penn State gets more, but successful, all pros, pro bowlers, whatever. Pitt's right there. I love what Pat Narduzzi's doing. He's making great players. They're just transferring to USC. They're transferring to Colorado and South Carolina. But he's got great players. He's doing it right. I don't like the guy. Like, I don't like Pat Narduzzi. I've never met him, but I don't like what he stands for. I think he's a punk. The way he goes to the media and complains about things, but I think he's on point as a coach. Rico, say that to his face. I'd love to meet him. Love to meet him. You guys don't know. I'm not walking around timid. Shout out to Mac Brown. Fun fact for you. Fun fact. Only 2 coaches out of 134 have national titles in their name. Have national titles under their name. Only 2 coaches have won a national title. That's crazy. Because who won all the last national titles? It's just Kirby Smart and Mac Brown. That's it. Nick Saban retired. Harbaugh went to the NFL. Jimbo Fisher got fired. There's nobody else. Mac Brown has a national title. Now, it was with Texas. It was 2005, 2004 timeframe. Like, it was a long time ago. But what he does really well is he doesn't get in the way. He doesn't get in the way. He's older now. It's kind of past him. But he does know how to run day-to-day operations for a college football team. He understands the offseason schedule. He has a really good syllabus, if you will. Like, he knows the structure and the schedule he wants to hold. And they recruit their ass off. North Carolina always has a 5-star somebody. They're always doing well. So Mac Brown's a part of that. That's why I think he's pretty good. Brent Pry went from average, what's the word? Unproven. I'm sorry. And he proved himself. And last year he did great. Virginia Tech won some games that really mattered. And I love everything about Virginia Tech and their trajectory. They're bringing back a ton of starters. I love the way they're assessing talent. They got a defensive end, hyphenated kid from Florida, Rylan Powell. And he showed up, and they knew, hey, we're going to start this kid. Kyron Drones, hey, we're going to start this kid. Vishal Tutton, FCS, HBCU All-American, hey, we're going to start this kid. They are assessing talent, and they're getting it right. Now, they're starting tight end. He just left to go to Ole Miss. That sucks. But receivers, they brought in Jalen Lane, the leading receiver from Middle Tennessee State. They brought in Ollie Jennings, the leading receiver from ODU. They have players at Virginia Tech. I love the way they're assessing their talent. It's on point. And for me, that's a skill set of a coach. Assessing your talent properly, making sure the right players are starting. There are some coaches who don't do this well. Shout out to Biff Poggi. Dave Duran, one of my least favorite coaches. I have him on the list because I respect what he's doing at North Carolina State. But for whatever reason, Dave Duran doesn't move me like that, man. I don't know what it is. And the success is there. The results are there. They speak for themselves. I just can't bring myself to like him. I like some of his players. You know, I said I support coaches and players and all this. And for Dave Duran, I'm like, that's how I feel. I'm just like, all right, cool. Jeff Brom. I've always believed and appreciated Jeff Brom's ability. That's why he's a good coach. Not great, though. I think Jeff Brom has a lot of false promises to the players. I've reached out. Well, they've reached out to me. I've talked to a lot of the players. I actually don't like the way the Brom brothers, Jeff and Brian, I don't like the way they carry themselves. I think that they are notorious for false promises. I think they're notorious for leaving players hanging after telling them they would give them a scholarship, then asking them to be a preferred walk-on, after signing a player, and then later pushing them to the portal. I've talked to the players. Now, I know when you talk to a player, 9 times out of 10, they're going to be disgruntled with the coaching staff, especially if they were pushed to the transfer portal, especially if they're not starting. But for me, I just don't like that stigma around you. Jeff Brom is a great offensive mind. I think he's great at what he does as a coach, but a part of the coaching, pedigree is being a people person. And I think that's what Jeff Brom's lacking. I don't think he's a people person. You're going to find people who support him and believe in him. But the amount of people that I've come across, the amount of players that I've come across that have told me, and some players' parents have even told me, he's just abrasive, he's cutthroat, he doesn't want to hear it, it's his way or the highway. Like, in 2 years to have that type of reputation at Louisville, it's bad. Get the results, no one gives a shit, right? No one cares. So I'll leave him at good. Not great. Good. Speaking of being a good people person, Marcus Freeman, Notre Dame. I think he's a good coach. That's why I have him in a good column. I think he's a good coach. Not great. I need better results. I need you to do something more. I hope Riley Leonard's healthy. I hope the team does everything you want it to do. Another thing I'll say is I hope, and I keep saying hope, I just hope that some of these star players at Notre Dame get drafted accordingly, because I'm watching them fall in the draft. Either that means you don't run an NFL scheme that's conducive, or you don't run a scheme that's conducive to NFL success. Maybe the players aren't as good as we anticipated, but something's wrong. Some Notre Dame players dropped in the draft a lot further than I anticipated, and that's not good. And the receiver core leaves a lot to be desired. Keep Greathouse, we'll see. But right now, shout out to Marcus Freeman. I think he's doing the best he can in the situation he's in. So let's hope he has a good year. Josh Heupel, love the coach. Love Josh Heupel. Don't know if he has defensive acumen at all, but offensively, Josh Heupel is on point. He knows what he's doing with quarterbacks. He knows how to manipulate these hash marks in college. He knows, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, the hash marks on a college football field are different from an NFL field. So you can do certain things with your alignment, with your motions, with your receivers, with your routes, combinations, all kinds of things you can do to be more advantageous at the collegiate level. It's akin back to those Oklahoma days. But what the problem is it doesn't translate to the NFL. So I have a really hard time seeing Tennessee quarterbacks being good. Not going to happen. Watch. Tennessee quarterbacks will not translate to the NFL based upon their offensive scheme. They're just not going to get it done, and they haven't been. There's 2 now, and we're going to go probably 4 out of the next 5. Won't translate. Maybe Nico does because he's such an exceptional talent, but watch. The scheme itself is problematic for me, and I don't like that. Okay. Kentucky, Mark Stoops, get it done, bro. I've been very disappointed in Mark Stoops because he's not utilizing his star receivers the way he should be. His offensive line sucks, and the results aren't there. Yes, you got to love Kentucky for being better than Louisville, for being relevant in the SEC to an extent, right? Winning 7 games is impressive for them, and going to bowl games. I'm sure Kentucky fans are happy with it. I'm not. I want more out of that team. I think they'll be great. Hopefully, BVG can do it. They just got Brock Vandergrift from Georgia, transferring in quarterback. Never started a game, but shout out to Prince Avenue Christian, former 5-star. I love everything. He's a dual threat, y'all. He's bad. He's a bad dude. I like him. Elijah Drinkowitz. Drinkwitz, Missouri. I never thought I would think Drinkwitz was a good coach. And I don't know if it's really him or Kirby Moore. So they got a new offensive coordinator last year and Moore. The offense took off. I did not believe in Moore initially, and he proved me wrong. Shout out to the whole Moore family and what they do and how great of coaches they are. But, man, he's doing it. So shout out to him at Missouri. If they have another elite year, I got to move him up to great. If they have another good year, and I anticipate Missouri's going to have a pretty good year this year. You guys don't realize it. Go look at the schedule. Go look at Missouri's team and their roster. They're going to have a pretty good year this year. Probably better than last year. Mark my words. Mike Elko, A&M. I was huge on Mike Elko last year. I tried to tell everyone Duke is building a dynasty because of Mike Elko, and now he's at A&M, and I predicted he would go to A&M before last year. I knew he would replace Jimbo Fisher. I was right, and I was right again. And I believe in Mike Elko. I think he's a good coach. So there you go. Matt Rule, building something out of nothing everywhere he goes. He's good, just not great. Jed Fish, another good coach. Obviously, he left to Washington. I meant to put Washington there. We'll see what happens. But another good coach, not great. Going to get to the great coaches here in a little bit. Remember, there's great and then there's elite. And I'll tell you the difference between the two. Let's get back to the chat. Sorry about that. Primetime groupies. How do I feel about Shane Beamer? Rewind the show. It's June, guys. Why is Matt Campbell so low? Looks like Campbell got a hold of the gambling issue. Fair. Apparently. Hey, Rico, is the Big Ten all Ohio State this year? I don't know what that means. Ohio State appears to be the best team in the Big Ten, but I wouldn't say it's all Ohio State. Iowa is very comparable. Oregon looks poised to go on a massive run in the Big Ten, so we're going to find it out. But Oregon looks elite. Ohio State looks elite. And then there's other teams that could really ruin your day. So, but those two seem head and shoulders above the rest for sure. Didn't Fish go to Washington? Yes. Once again, sometimes, dude, I be writing lists. I be writing names. I go too fast. It is what it is. Drinkwitz needs to go down a tier based on that really bad, cringy recruiting video he was not in too long ago. I didn't see the video, Derek. I didn't see the video at all. That's on me. If you want to send it to me, let me know. But I don't judge him on that. Brian Kelly's way up on this list, and he's got the corniest video, if you will. Pitt is impressive regardless of the record. Got guys getting drafted just about every year. That is correct. Dabo, currently, Dabo's way up higher on this list. Travis, we'll get to him. Sup, Rico? What up, man? When you say 2 Tennessee quarterbacks haven't worked out, are you counting Hooker when he tore his ACL? Yeah, I'm counting Hooker. What the hell, Sean? Of course I'm counting Hooker. I ain't worried about hey, dude, injuries are part of the assessment and the metric. That means you're not durable. Don't you ever get it twisted. According to RicoKnows, he's high on USC this season. I don't believe that's a true statement at all. Who is scoring for Iowa when they play a decent team? Legit, non-sarcastic question. Okay, Steve. So, I have no earthly idea. Iowa obviously has a new offensive coordinator. They were ranked 130th in the country on offense. I hope they're top 100. Let me make that very clear. I hope they are top 100, and that'll be a great improvement. Improving 30 spots is not a bad deal. So I hope they're top 100. I got nothing for you, bro. I can't drop no names. I can't tell you they're great. I've watched every piece of film. I've assessed every single player. I've watched everything I could about spring. I read everything. All I got for you is Iowa, hope they're top 100 in offense. When I'm saying somebody should be top 100 in offense, that's not very good. It's still not good. Iowa is still not good offensively, but they're a good team. They have a great defense. And when I say great defense, they have the best linebacker core in America. Pretty sure. Yep, they have the best linebacker core in America. One of the best secondaries. And obviously one of the best defensive coordinators and head coaches, so they're pretty good. That's how it works. We'll figure it out. Let's go look at these great coaches. Mike Norvell is the great coach. First great coach I'm going to talk about, Florida State. What does he do so well? Assesses talent correctly. He assesses talent correctly out of the transfer portal. On his own roster, he starts the right guys. You don't see a breakout star from the bench because they had the wrong players in the starting lineup. Nope, they have the right starting players in the lineup. The only thing he had to overcome is injuries, a lack of depth. That'll happen when you're not doing it from recruiting and you're just doing it from the transfer portal. But Florida State is who Colorado wishes they were, who a lot of teams wish they were. Florida State has built their team through the transfer portal, and Mike Norvell is a huge reason why. He's great. Kalen DeBoer wins everywhere he goes. He's going to be at Alabama, and I think they're going to win games. I think he's doing well in recruiting as well. Great coach. Both great coaches. Lincoln Riley, I have him great because of his offensive mind, but he obviously doesn't know what he's doing on the defensive side of the ball. Just hired a good defensive coordinator out of Jansen Lin, out of UCLA. We'll see what happens, but I need better results out of Lincoln Riley to keep him great. Right now, though, he's coached how many Heismans? Three Heismans. Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, Caleb Williams. Like he's the guy, man. He knows how to build offenses. He knows how to build offensive players. He has Zachariah Branch. They're going to be deadly. They're going to be explosive. Trust, Lincoln Riley is still a great coach. The results aren't there. It is what it is. He finally got rid of a terrible defensive coordinator. Brian Kelly, he is a great coach. He is. LSU has a massive offensive line next year, 2 of the best tackles in America. They do need work in a lot of areas, but Brian Kelly is a good coach, a great coach. Lane Kiffin, one of my favorites. Lane Kiffin out of Ole Miss. The results aren't there like you envision, but they are. Like, if you're a top 15 team every year, you're a great coach. What he's doing, the way he does it, the players believe in him, the program believes in him, the fans believe in him, I believe in him. I love Lane Kiffin. Those days of losing to Alabama every year, I think they're behind him. He has a loaded team, and he carries his team, and he builds his roster like an NFL GM. Just gets the best 85 he can find. Does not give a shit about your college career. Doesn't worry about your playing time. His job is to get the best 85. If that means I'm going to take you out of a starting lineup on another team to make you fifth string over here, that's what the hell I'm going to do, and I love it. So shout out to Lane Kiffin. Willie Fritz at Houston. Willie Fritz, longtime head coach at Tulane, doing remarkable things at Tulane, being a perennial power year in and year out. Now he's finally at Houston. Yes, the results will be terrible this year. Do not get it twisted. Willie Fritz is a great coach. He knows what to do to be great. He wins everywhere he goes. He's good. He's great. The results will not be great. That doesn't matter. He is changing the culture at Houston. He got rid of a ton of players who were not team-oriented. He only brought in receiver core kind of guy, or he only brought in, character guys, GPA guys, locker room guys. I love what he's doing. He's just a fuck it, bro. We're going to go win with some bookworms. We'll see how it works out for him at Houston, but I really like Willie Fritz as a man, and as a coach, I think he's a great hire at Houston. Kurt Cignetti at Indiana. I don't know how you get any better. This is a man who came up, through some roots that nobody really knows about, bringing his team together, getting to the FCS level, making them national champs, bringing JMU to the FBS, making them relevant within 2 years. Now he's at Indiana. It's going to take some time. It's going to be hard. You got to find an elite quarterback. But my God, do I love Indiana's transfer portal class. Every chance I get, people talk about who's your most underrated teams. I just keep saying the same teams over and over. UTEP, West Virginia, Indiana. Like, I can't stop saying these team names enough, and they're not underrated by me. If I was to rank them, I'm ranking them very high. I respect them. If you're an MVP, you know what I think of Indiana and their win total this upcoming season. I love Indiana a lot. Lance Leopold at Kansas. Coming out of Buffalo, he made Buffalo relevant for a little bit. They were good in the MAC. And then he gets to Kansas, and he ain't playing with you. We're not in Kansas anymore. Beast-ass team, great coach. I think Lance Leopold won't be at Kansas much longer. Somebody at the upper echelon is going to be hiring him. Somebody's going to get fired, and they're going to look to hire Lance Leopold. He's that great. Hugh Freeze is great. He's at Auburn. Everywhere he goes, he becomes a winner. Now, is he cheating? I don't know. Is he hiring hookers and prostitutes? I don't know. But Hugh Freeze is a great coach. What I see from him on Saturdays, the decision-making, is great. He knows what he's doing. And he can just instantly bring credibility to your program overnight. He wins recruiting battles. I love everything about Hugh Freeze. That's a great coach. Mike Gundy. This is crazy. You guys ever want to know how bad I missed? Recruiting sites miss all the time. I just did a post the other day, 2 hours ago, about recruiting websites missing on Josh Jacobs, saying he was the 6th best all-purpose back, and the 5 guys in front of him never played in the NFL. So they missed bad 5 times in a row, and then they hit on Josh Jacobs. I guess they made him a 4-star. But I missed on Mike Gundy like you wouldn't believe. Now, you got to go find the videos. They don't exist. They're somewhere far back. but I missed on Mike Gundy so bad last year. I wanted to put him on my he was on the hot seat. I remember this. I said, Mike Gundy's on the hot seat. He's going to get fired because he lost all his good players in the transfer portal. This was last year, right? And then somebody asked me about a running back on Oklahoma State. And at the time, I had not been studying the Oklahoma State running back room, but they had just lost their running back to Baylor, their leading rusher, Dominic Richardson. And so he was like, hey, how good is Jaden Nixon? So I was like, yo, Jaden Nixon, track star kid. His parents were track stars. I'm like, okay, let me go look at Jaden Nixon. So I'm watching film on Jaden Nixon, and I come across Ollie Gordon. Guys, it's a true story. You can find it. It was made last year. Just search Oklahoma State, hashtag Oklahoma State, hashtag RicoKnows. On TikTok, you'll find the video. I'm talking about Jaden Nixon. And in the Jaden Nixon video, I said, hey, he's not a natural running back for me. I don't think he's any good. I said, guys, I think this Ollie Gordon kid is the next great running back at Oklahoma State. I talked about it all last summer. I just said, dude, this Ollie Gordon kid is the next pro for me. And he had never been the starting running back at Oklahoma State. I just watched film, and I know what I saw, and I went, wait, that guy's great, that guy's wrong, okay? So there was that initial, oh, my God, they have Ollie Gordon, and I think he's going to be an NFL star. And then I went and I looked at their schedule, and I went and I said, okay, let me check this schedule out. And I checked the schedule, and they were playing all 4 of the new Big 12 teams. We're talking BYU, UCF, Cincinnati, and Houston. They were playing all 4. I said, there's no way his team loses to these teams. I think Oklahoma State's going to be good. So even though I wanted to make Mike Gundy a video and say he's on the hot seat and he should be fired, I didn't make the video. I didn't make the video because I thought Oklahoma State's going to win those games, and they have an amazing running back in Ollie Gordon that nobody knows. And I made these videos on TikTok telling you this. And I was right. So although I was initially wrong, I was like, Mike Gundy's getting fired. Then I changed my mind because I assessed the running back room and the schedule. How about them apples? Mike Gundy's him. He's been great for a long time. I'm a man. I'm 40, right? That's Mike Gundy. So amazing. Gets the most out of his team. His players believe in him. Love Mike Gundy. Luke Fickell. Nothing you can say about Luke Fickell other than the only reason he's not elite is because of last year's debacle. I expected more out of Wisconsin in his first year. I think Luke Fickell's great. And I think he's going to do great things at Wisconsin. They just won a recruiting battle. They just got Mason Poza, one of these star linebackers I just reviewed, an edge rusher out of New Mexico, 4-star kid, one of the top 5 defenders I've reviewed in the last 2 years. I just looked at him and thought he's amazing. So I was talking to him the other day on Twitter, and I'm like, bro, where are you going? He was like, I'm down to my top 3. I'm going to announce it tomorrow, whatever. I was like, I wrote on Twitter. I said, well, I can't wait to see you sign with Wisconsin. And Wisconsin coaches liked the comment. He liked it, and I knew, okay, we're going to Wisconsin. And sure enough, he committed to Wisconsin. Shout out to Luke Fickell. They're doing great things. Hopefully the results get on the field. If you got to get a new offense coordinator, please do. That's all I'll say. Brought him in from North Carolina. It's not working out. Kirk Ferentz, Iowa. You can't say Kirk Ferentz isn't a great coach. You can't. Iowa's been good year in and year out no matter what they have, and they got some damn terrible. They got Keanu Reeves at quarterback, bro. They got some terrible players on the offensive side of the ball, but Iowa is great. They got the replacements at quarterback, and they're still great. Now, before I start talking about the elite coaches, because there's only 5 of them, I'm going to go back to the chat, and then we'll end the show here shortly, because I do got to get ready for the UFC fights tonight. What's up, Rico? When you say 2 Tennessee, yep, already did that. Not high on that. Hey, Leopold at Wisconsin Whitewater was a problem. This is a fact. We'll be interested to see what happens with him. Shout out to you, Steve. That's true. Shout out to Rico for admitting his L on Gundy. Man, I admit my L's all the time. They're just so rare. Nobody sees them. It's part of the process. Adrian says, Rico, how do I go about being an MVP via YouTube or Discord? All right, Adrian. So, for those of you who don't know, to be an MVP, all you have to do is either go to YouTube, which you're already currently on, or Patreon. Patreon's an app, just like OnlyFans, just like Reddit, just like anywhere else. Go on your phone, go to the App Store, download Patreon, download it, search RicoKnows. You'll find RicoKnows, all one word. join the channel. Now, it's free to join the Patreon. We have over 3,500 members. But if you want to be an MVP, there are some free videos in there. There's free videos. But if you want to be an MVP, it's $25 a month or it's $255 a year. And with that, you get all the UFC picks, all the college football picks, and you get every single UFC fight. You get to watch it with me on the Discord server. So what you do is you get the YouTube. If you join YouTube MVP or Patreon MVP, it doesn't matter which one. There's a way to connect those apps to the Discord server. So you get a link to the Discord server. You show up to the Discord server. You won't be able to see anything. You won't be able to see a damn thing unless you're an MVP. Now, I'm going to pull it up on the screen for you guys. Actually, I had it minimized and closed. I just restarted my computer before the show. So I actually have to open it here. Give me a second. But when you go to Discord, you will not be able to see all the channels. So if you get to the Discord server and you're not an MVP, there are some free channels for you guys, but you don't get to see all the good stuff. And the good stuff are the picks, right? I'm going to tell you who's going to win, because if you know that, then you can go and put money on it and you can win. And that's why some people will be like, Rico, I can't afford this. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. There's not an MVP out there that has lost money. I don't know an MVP out there losing money. So you pay 25 and you're making, some of them make thousands. I'm not joking. So let me show you guys. It's here. This is the Discord server. If you look, you will see all these channels over here with these little pound signs on them. You can see those if you're a free member. And I give out a 10K ladder free pick every now and then. I give out a plus 100 pick, something you should bet on. Okay, but if you go down here with the trophies and there's little locks, this is MVP stuff. And this is people talking about UFC picks, college football picks. Now, I provide you with picks every single weekday game out of the year. There's 400 games. I provide you with picks on every single UFC fight. That's what these charts are right here. These are all the picks every single week. What I'll tell you guys is I am not a capper where I'm giving you picks every day on baseball and basketball and all this. We don't need to bet on everything. It takes about a week before I do enough analysis to give you guys a pick and tell you what's right. But I'll tell you this. The amount of things we hit on is pretty remarkable. If I can pull this up, I'll pull up last week's. If you guys can see last week's here, I'll try to zoom in. It's not letting me. But if you look, we are at 62% on all fights. That's fine. Our locks are now over 80%. It says 79. We haven't missed on a lock in 3 weeks. So the fights are going on tonight at 7 o'clock. I will be doing it like this, live streaming on the Discord server. We'll be on the stage. You can't get in there unless you're an MVP. And I will be providing commentary, telling you what to do, live bets, what we're doing. But we haven't missed any of these greens in about 3 weeks. And we're hitting on all these first parlays. Now, the parlays, we're only hitting on about 56% of parlays. You will make your money, but you just need to be careful and you need to choose wisely. Some MVPs are better than others, but we have a wins channel where all the MVPs come in here and post their winnings. They post their plus 2,000 winnings, their plus 368 parlays. These guys post stuff all the time. This guy turned $40 into $1,200. This guy turned 100 into 500 or 50 into 88. They're just, every single bet's a straight across bet here, 50 to 88, 50 to 88. This is very normal for my guys, my MVPs, 50 to 169. It happens. Now, do people lose? Yes. Here's a great bet. This guy did a 6-leg parlay. Shout out to him. I don't recommend it. I like about 2 legs and we're good. Pause, right? But there are people out here turning $25, if you will, 25 into 125. Shout out to the guys who jumped on Ryan Garcia winning. But we have guys betting on everything. I would just tell you guys that if you're new to gambling, show up and trust the MVPs. They will help you. There's thousands of people in there that will help you. They will give you advice. They will tell you what books to use. They'll do all that stuff for you. I do prefer that you use Patreon to be a member. It's just a little cleaner look when you're navigating the website and you're trying to go to things. Because if you go to Patreon, it looks like this. This is the Patreon. Now, I'm not on the homepage. I'm actually on the collections or the playlist. So here's the playlist. And you could even go to like futures bets like this, 2024 futures bets, college football. You click on here and you can scroll through these. You can do a search. You just search for a team name and see if I've made a video on that team. But you can go through these and see my assessment. I do 30-minute long assessments on each team. and telling you whether or not they're going to win. Now, I really break down these teams. I talk about everything. So whenever somebody asks me, like, hey, Rico, how many games is so-and-so going to win? I've already made the video, and I've already made my prediction. It's only for the MVPs, though. So if you want to know these answers, you can then go to the sports book and bet on these. It's on the sports book. If you didn't know, if you go to, where am I looking? If you go up here and you go to FanDuel, depends on your state, but if you click on it, you can go in here, you go to win totals before the season starts, and here's every single team in America. I have a video for all these teams. Okay, I've already made the video on these teams. We're currently on South Carolina right now. I owe them a video on South Carolina. So right here, do you think South Carolina's going to win 5.5 games during the regular season? I will tell you that answer and let you know when you can go bet on it. Now they're saying it's locked. That's weird. These shouldn't be locked. They'll be unlocked here shortly. These shouldn't be locked. They're not locked. But anyways, you can go make these bets. Yes, I have videos on who's going to win the Heisman, the national championship, who's winning in week 1 and 0, and what games we should bet on. Right now, everything's locked. It is what it is. They'll fix it. So, yeah, that's what MVP is. You do get all these videos. I want to tell you, 700 videos on Patreon nobody's ever seen, only for MVPs. So, shout out to them. It's what we do. Thank you very much. Shaking my head. Where's the homie coach scammers? The homie coach scammers. He's just a motivational speaker, a manager, and influencer, not an X&O guy. Oh, well, it is what it is. You know, some coaches are meant to do that. Some coaches are meant to be figureheads and motivate people, but I need somebody to hold the X&O guys accountable. Is the CFL or UFL better talent, in my opinion? Boxer, it's a little different. So in the CFL, there is talented players. But remember, the CFL is the Canadian Football League, and they literally require each team to have a certain number of Canadian citizens on the team. They can only have about, and you can go look it up, it's the American ratio. They can only have like 10 American players on each team. So they're not trying to be better than the UFL. They're not trying to have the most talented teams. They require those teams to have Canadian players. They can only have so many college teams. American-born college players. So UFL is trying to get better talent. I think UFL could probably be more talented teams. They're not as well gelled. They don't stick around as long because the UFL releases every single player after the season so they can go sign an NFL contract. CFL, those guys will be on a team for 4 or 5 years. So the CFL has better continuity. And I don't necessarily think they're trying to have better talent than the UFL, if you will. I think UFL has some really talented players. Rico, where is the Philly draft review? Philadelphia Eagles? I will get to those in a little bit. Do you prefer Patreon or YouTube MVP? Definitely Patreon. Number one, I get a larger cut of the MVP membership. If you become a member on YouTube, YouTube takes $7.50 from every single payment. Patreon only takes $2.50. So make about $5 more per person. I'm being extremely transparent. I do not appreciate the way YouTube takes money from people. YouTube also takes half my ad revenue. They do a lot of things wrong. So, you live with it. They're both better than TikTok. TikTok doesn't pay you at all, just so we're clear. Some MVPs are better than others. Yes, they are, Steve. Shout out to you. Thank you for the $10 super chat. I appreciate you, brother. That's awesome. Thank you so much for supporting the channel and me. You make my life possible. I think I've seen your record in some older videos, and you was 60%, which in itself is pretty great. We'll be signing up for sure. So in college football, I am definitely against the spread. I was 60%. Remember, that's over 400 games in college football. It's a little different when you're trying to predict. I actually don't have the chart up, and I don't want to open it right now. But against the spread, we were at 60% for the entire college football season. Hey, big shout out to Kim Jones. She just showed up in her cameo. We appreciate it. You don't have to say sorry. You run this shit. She runs this shit. Hey, y'all. She didn't eat the breakfast I made her this morning, just so we're back on that. Shout out to her. All right, so back to the elite coaches, then we're going to end the show, and we're going to get ready for UFC tonight. So, elite coaches in college football. Kirby Smart. It's not debatable. Kirby Smart is great at developing players. The majority of his – not the majority. Let me say this. Georgia has the most 3-star players getting drafted. If you're a 3-star player and you sign with Georgia, you tend to get drafted before all the other 3-stars. I appreciate that. That is development of the players. Okay? That is incredible. Shout out to Kirby Smart and what he's doing. Yes, he's winning. He's finding getting the most out of his players. Now, Has he compromised his character and his ethics for winning? Probably. These guys break the law all over the place. I don't like it at all. He's got more DUIs in the starting lineup than I've ever seen. But the results speak for themselves. He's a hell of a coach. Dabo Swinney, I don't care what anybody thinks. 2 years ago, they won the ACC. He's in a bad spot right now because he recruited a 5-star quarterback in Cade Klubnik, and he has yet to perform at the level that the recruiting websites labeled him as. Okay? This is bad. When you miss on a 5-star quarterback, it can set you back a number of years. It's just like missing on a first-round draft pick. Clemson needs to find that 5-star that they believe in. They need to win a recruiting battle of some sort in that regard. But my goodness, do they have everything else. There are NFL talented linebackers, defensive linemen, running backs, defensive backs, just not wide receivers and quarterbacks. And it's unfortunate because that's part of the game. They're still very good, and Dabo's still very good. Dabo has lost coordinator after coordinator after coordinator, and he still remains relevant with his team. They just need to win. They just need to win. I think they're one of the premier programs in America, and people don't get it. If you won the ACC 2 years ago and you didn't win it last year, it's not the drop-off you all think it is. It's not the end of the world. This is a man, yes, he didn't go to the playoffs 2 years ago, but they still won the ACC. That's all you have control over. You don't have any control over whether or not some room of some old guys is going to put you in the playoffs. All you can do is win your schedule, win your conference, and if anybody thinks it's good, then it's good. If they don't think it's good, then you don't get voted into the playoffs. That's the reality of the situation. That's all you can do is win your conference. So they didn't do it last year. Obviously, Florida State ran the table, but Clemson has a chance to be relevant every single year. The talent is there. You guys don't understand. The front seven at Clemson is so NFL ready, and it's so riddled with NFL guys. It's crazy. Really, really love what he does at Clemson. Ryan Day, Ohio State. Some people don't like Ryan Day. Some people think, man, he just lost to Michigan back-to-back years. He's not very good. Stop it. They're losing to no one else, and they definitely don't lose in the offseason. They won the transfer portal. They win in recruiting. They win in development. They win in NFL players. Like, everything about Ryan Day is on point. I'm cool with it. Yes, he needs to win, but he's still an elite coach when it comes to college football. And then the next two guys, you got to understand why they're here, and don't you dare knock it. Kyle Whittingham at Utah is an elite coach. Utah gets 3 stars, makes them 5 stars. Utah has the best quarterback in the Big 12. He's a 2-time Pac-12 champion quarterback, Cam Rising. 2-time Pac-12 championship quarterback. He won a conference that others can't win, bro. He won the conference, and a dude was winning the Heisman. That dude is real. Like, everything Utah does is great. And they find player after player after player. I love the way they assess talent. I remember last year I talked about the 3-star wide receiver they were signing, and I said, oh, he's going to be a starter. I went and watched film on Mikey Matthews, 3-star kid coming out of high school. And I was like, hey, guys, I just watched Mission Viejo tape, and Mikey Matthews is better than 5-star wide receivers. I got attacked in the comments. I got told I don't know what I'm talking about. As a bunch of 5-star wide receivers never made a starting lineup anywhere, and Mikey Matthews was in the starting lineup from day one. And now he just transferred to Cal. But Mikey Matthews was him. I was right. Oh, by the way, Utah was right. Now, Utah has had some problems. Injury problems. I don't know how they need to address that, but now they just had Woods go down, this transfer running back coming in from Idaho. So amazing. Tony Woods, so amazing. Okay? They just lost their running back to Arkansas in the transfer portal. Shout out to Jackson. Jaquindon Jackson, former All-American quarterback coming out of high school, was at Texas, transferred to Utah, was the running back leaving. I think he's going to be a great running back at Arkansas this year, by the way. He looks really good in the spring. Utah's got their work cut out, but they have amazing tight ends. They're great in the trenches, and their coach develops players and has a culture that's just conducive to winning. I love what Kyle Whittingham does. And then the last coach on the elite list, Chris Kleiman. Won a bunch of national titles at North Dakota State. In the FCS, shout out to the Bison. Then shows up at K-State, and with 3-star players, wins the Big 12. Oh, but Rico, they got blown out by Alabama. Yeah, dude, he had nothing but 3-star players. Now he's getting 4-star players. Now they've been winning recruiting battles and transfer portal battles, and they've been finding these players. It's going to be tough to get over the hump, but that team is good. They're well coached. They just need speed at wide receiver. They need speed in the secondary. They're well coached. And it's all Chris Kleiman who develops these 3-star kids and makes them great. Makes them NFL draft picks. K-State had a first-round draft pick 2 years ago. He was the last pick in the first round by the Chiefs, I want to say. Forget his name. It's like an African name. I think he came out of Missouri in high school. He was a 2-star kid coming out of high school. 2 stars to first-round draft pick. Like, that's a great coach. Chris Kleiman. The bee's knees, bro. So those are my elite coaches in college football. They get the most juice out of every squeeze. I'm going to go to the chat one last time, then we're going to end the show. Let's see what we say here. Patreon it is. Shout out to Ryan P. Thank you guys for supporting the channel. Yeah, if you want to become an MVP and get all the exclusive videos about every single team and get all the UFC picks and the college football picks, please get to Patreon. It's on point. Sign up, folks. The banter alone is worth the sprinkle is the bonus. There it is. Shout out to Steve. Yes, if you want to watch UFC fights with me, I provide real-time analysis, real live bets. I provide commentary better than Joe Rogan and Daniel Cormier and anybody talking fights. I know fighting better than them. I'm not joking. I've been an MMA instructor for the last 20 years, and I can sit there and talk you through everything that's occurring. Shout out to my people who watch me. We do have a good showing every single week. Everybody looks forward to it. Oh, and we win money. Kairos MMA says, how do you feel about Jeremiah Trotter Jr. as a college player versus NFL guy, and should he have stayed another year? Well, staying another year is one thing, but let me show you something. I appreciate the question. So you're asking, how do I feel about Jeremiah Trotter Jr.? And it's always nice when people show up and they ask these questions, because I can tell who doesn't follow the channel. And it's nothing personal. I can just tell you don't follow the channel. That's all. So I'm going to show you my draft rankings going into the draft this year. I'm pulling it up now. Give me a second. Going into the draft this year, and you can see my linebacker draft. And if you look at my linebacker rankings, the way it works is these are my favorite guys. Doesn't matter. They're just my favorite guys at the top. The top 5 are my favorite. These are my deep hidden gems. Okay? And then these are my top 10. No joke, top 10 linebackers going into the draft. And my number 2 linebacker is Jeremiah Trotter Jr. I think the world of Jeremiah Trotter Jr. Now, should he have stayed another year? That's on him. I don't give advice like that. I don't care. I'm just telling you, I think the world of that man. I think he's a great player. I think he's a positive to any locker room he enters. Every team should be after him, and they just let him drop and drop and drop and drop. It's all good. I think very highly of him, Kairos. Hey, guys, thanks for supporting the channel. Thank you for believing in me. Thank you. Please watch the videos. Hit like, hit subscribe, hit follow, but join. That's the big one. Join means you're an MVP. If you join the channel, whether it be on YouTube or Patreon, that's what makes my life possible. You'll get all the fancy videos, all the private ones, all the hard ones, the premium ones. Did I just say private and hard at the same time? Yo! Don't pause on that. Anyways, I'm ending the show there. We're going to get ready for tonight. Hey, it's Father's Day tomorrow. Shout out to my dad, man. Shout out to my pops. Tony Rico Sr. raised all of us, made us great. I wouldn't be here without him. I think about him often. I think I talk about my father every single day of my life. Is that true, babe? You do. I do. Shout out to my dad. He made it happen. And for those of you out there, if you didn't grow up with a father like mine, you probably won't be great like me. Your friends don't know, but Rico knows. Peace, y'all.
Switch to Chrome to load your favorite sites fast, so you can browse with ease.